So while our previous videos focused on Basic Bob based on Bob Van's Vance Refrigeration, we now move on to Combo Carla based on Carla from Scrubs. When I say based on, I mean I put up a picture of them and otherwise it has nothing whatsoever to do with them. But Combo Carla is going to be a really different type of player, and where I built up Basic Bob from a kind of understanding from the Always Takes games of here is a formationally sound player who focuses on securing and then adjust their style to deal with combo, but essentially is built up from the core kind of rules of the game. Carla comes from playing combo. And so instead of kind of adjusting formational understandings for the world of combo, she looks at the game as setting up combos as the primary goal and formations as more secondary. So I think this is a kind of different approach to the rule set and figuring out what kind of moves you're going to look for. So if we look at what we learned about Basic Bob's play, and I think I should have put this summary in Basic Bob videos, but for hand building, we saw he likes these 4-corner hand builds. He's always going to use powerful cards. He's going to have one for each corner, which means he's going to be directionally balanced, and his 5th card is going to be a utility card, usually good horizontally or vertically. His formational understanding is he always wants to be securing, he doesn't want to give you secure moves, and he likes to start in corners. When he replies to starter, so he tries to make sure that he can take their starters in both ways, and we've only looked at corner starters, but it is easier to achieve that against sides or center starters, so that's not really going to be, he's not going to be as tied to specific types of responses there, because he just doesn't have to set up against their side. Sides are usually vulnerable lots of ways, and centers vulnerable even more ways. So we didn't look at those, but I think from when in doubt, you can see how he'd respond to side starters, which is play the strongest corner you've got that you can retake both ways. So against a side starter, he might either slide next to it if he thinks that would be safe, obviously because that only is one outfacing value. He would not be able to recapture if you took it, so he'd only do that if that was safe. Otherwise, he would go in one of the far corners with one of his strongest corners. And similarly, against a center starter, he's always going to build out trying to set up a strong corner. So I think from what we've seen, he does figure out specific replies to starters. I think specifically against corner starters, he has this logic that's useful to follow. But against other starter types, he's just happy to start building out a strong corner. And in summary, his keyword is secure. Secure, 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 build defensively, use strong cards. And those are kind of the things that I think emblemize Basic Bob's play. Combo Carla, on the other hand, does not look for safety particularly, though of course, as any good player will do, she will often take safety. She looks for synergy. But that doesn't mean she plays totally different. She may reply to starters with a kind of similar move order priority, but puts going in 5, going in the center, as a higher priority than Bob would, because it is the most synergistic square available. So she's going to find moves in 5 more often, but she is still happy to play in adjacent corners, a lot of the stuff similar. She's much less likely to go in the far corner from a corner starter, because that's not something that sets up any sames or pluses, but she's happy to go in 3 or 7 if they say they go in 1, and she's very happy to go in 5 because she wants to be setting up as many pluses and sames as possible, because down the road when the combos go off, she's going to have more combos than her opponents. This also means she's going to have very different hand building. One of the bigger differences is going to be the kind of hands she constructs. Bob's constructed hands with corner starters in mind. She will have a different starter type she builds hands towards. And Bob has a tendency to block up space. And we're going to get to a better example of that in a bit. But Bob will be uncomfortable with spatial distance. He'll tend to play close to things. I think we saw that a bit when he was looking at the games that I had him commentate on. And Carla will be much more comfortable with leaving space open and leaving squares in between things without feeling the need to occupy immediately. So there are going to be some significant differences, but I also want to say any good player is going to share a fair chunk of moves with any other good player. Great players had quite different styles, but in lots of positions, they're going to play the exact same move because this is just clearly the best move, and any player good enough will recognize that. And I think sometimes in games, this happens in chess where someone goes, I played this move, I sacrificed because sacrificing and attacking is my style. But sacrificing is just a garbage move, and all the great players they look up to would sacrifice in other spots, but not in this one, because in this one, there's a clear correct plan that's not that, and any great player would play that other plan, not the sacrifice. And using style as a justification for poor moves, I think can happen quite a lot. So I should say there is significant crossover in their moves, and I'm going to try to emphasize that throughout this video. So what would basic Bob do here? We've been thrown into a wild position, and what would Bob do? And Bob would, he wouldn't be confused. He would come in and go, okay, my goal is to secure cards. The only place I can lock in cards, meaning, they have no outfacing sides to an empty square, is if I go in 3, I have the chance to lock in 2, and if I go in 4, I have the chance to lock in 1. He'd notice, okay, I have 1 capture in 3. But that's not safe, and in fact, if I look at it again, it gets immediately comboed. A4, 8, 7, and 3 has the 8 down, and 8, 8, 6, 6 can combo it. So he would discard that move. And then he would look at 4, and he would go, okay, I have 1 capture in 4, and again it's A4, 8, 7, and again it gets comboed immediately by 8, 8, 6, 6. So he has no moves that lock a card in that's secure that aren't immediately comboed back, thus showing that the card wasn't actually secured because that card gets flipped too. So the next thing you do is you go, okay, I either want safety or to make sure I don't concede the opponent having secure moves that secure even more cards than they might normally by going in, say, 3 or 4. So one move he would look at is A4, 8, 7, and 6. Now, this doesn't secure anything, but it is safe. On the other hand, it concedes a bunch of secure squares. If they play in 3, that also secures 2. So it is 1 safe card in exchange for the opponent getting a move that secures 2 cards. But that's the only safe move in the position, so that is one that would jump out at him. Actually, there is another safe move. I guess I didn't notice this when writing this up. 6, 9, A4, and 4 is also safe. But let's ignore that. And then the other idea would be avoid giving the opponent more securings than they already have. They can secure 1 at a time right now. The only square we can go in where we don't give them access to securing 2 at a time is if we go in 8 and set up a Z structure. So we would also consider moves in 8. And again, I didn't look at Cypher in 4, so I won't be able to evaluate that. But how did Bob do? Well, A4, 8, 7, 6 loses to either of the A9s in 3. They secure more cards. They have enough power left over. It's actually a losing move. And again, as you can see at the top, it says red to move and win. So maybe we don't want to lose this position. And all moves in 8 also lose. Cypher in 8, 6, 9, A4 loses to A9, 5, 5, and 7, which just takes it and is safe because we've used the only card that could combo Fafnir back. And both the other cards lose to A9, 5, 5, and 3, and you can calculate that out. That is good 3-move calculation practice. So as we've seen, and we've seen a bunch of games with Bob play, he has good instincts, right? This is a good, sound, formational player. But in a spot like this, he's going to make horrible blunders. He is not capable of the kind of complexity or calculations needed when more than just trying to play the safest, the highest outfacing value is needed. And so I think this is a nice example of somewhere where Bob cannot handle this position, right? We're going to need a different or a better, either one might work, but we're going to need someone other than a Bob. And when I put this problem up for people to solve, it was telling that, for instance, a fantastic defensive player kept trying to find moves in 8 here, and they all lose. But he just kept trying with the moves in 8, and that makes sense. A defensive player instinctively will look for that kind of square, not give the opponent securings, try to be a bit safe. And it wasn't working. So now we're going to look at what Combo Carla would do. So she would look, nope, oops, yeah. Can we go to the right slide? Yeah, all right. So I put the slides out of order. That's a shame. What would Combo Carla do? So she would look to maximize combo potential. And right now, if we look at squares where red has a plus or plus wall, they have one in 4 with the 8, 7, 8, 6, though it only plus walls the card in 5. It does not take the card in 1. They have one in 8, 6, 9, A4. that doesn't combo the card in 9, but it does take it, and it also plus same walls the card in 5, which you'll notice has a 9 and an A facing out, so that could be a very powerful card to flip if cards go next to it, because it will likely flip them as well. And there is a plus 8, 7, 8, 6 in 6, giving a very good way to play in 6. And so Combo Carla would ask, what's my best way to improve this? And specifically, the kinds of moves she looks for, where Basic Bob looks kind of next to stuff to block stuff in, Combo Carla looks diagonally. If she sees a card in a square, and she sees something diagonal, so looking at 5, there are 2 open squares diagonal to it. But the square to 3 is next to occupied squares. So it's the square 7 that she immediately looks at. This is one where she can split the board and make this paired set of squares. Right? If a card goes in 7, then 4 and 8 become a pair. And what she wants is to play in this diagonal thing, which sets up these pair of squares, and this pair of squares both affect mostly the same cards. Right? 4 affects 1 and 8 affects 9. Those are distinct. Those don't affect each other. But both of them impact 5 and 7. And so her dream in so many positions is going to be play diagonally, set up combos in both squares such that when they play in one, I can play in the other and flip everything. And she wants to set up as many of these paired squares as possible, and thus the goal for Carla is going to be look for diagonal moves to the action. We don't need to play in the action. We don't need to touch the action. If we can play diagonally and set up good combo power in both squares, we're going to have a lot of force here. So the moves that come to mind for cards to put in 7 are A4, 8, 7. This way, Cypher, 6, 9, A4, has a same in both 4 and 8. Or Cypher, 6, 9, A4 in 7, which gives A4, 8, 7 a plus in 8, and A4, 8, 7 also still has a lot of power in 4 because it can take the card in 1, which Cypher in the other line couldn't. And so these are the 2 moves that Carla would look at. And then the next thing Carla's going to do, because both moves make red have much more threat than they currently have in both those squares, right? Both those moves greatly increase Combo Carla's combo potential. And then the question would be, which of those cards do I more want out of my hand? And if you just look at pure raw capturing power right now, 6-9-A4 obviously has less. A4-8-7 has 3 different squares it can go in right now, which capture something. 6-9-A4 only has 1 in 8. So 6-9-A4 is the card more desirable to get out of the hand, and she would play that card in 7. And we have to go back some slides. So it turns out A4, 8, 7, and 7 actually loses to Zidane in 3. Again, you can calculate it on your own. But Cypher in 7 is very strong. And as said, I do think a Carla-type player will find Cypher as the move here. Because we're going to check for capturing power. We're going to see we want to hold on to the A4, 8, 7. We don't so much want to hold on to 6, 9, A4. And we're going to play Cypher in 7. And so yeah. I think this is one of those positions where Carla will play a very, very strong move that is very hard for the opponent to meet, while Bob will just collapse immediately. And it's because the position requires a kind of thinking or a kind of move that Basic Bob isn't capable of seeing, and Carla will find. So, tenets of Carla's play. Hand building, we'll get to this, that's for a later video. Formational understanding. Securing is good. She's not completely giving up on the kind of formational stuff. But a lot of the securing will happen is if there are 2 paired squares, right? We have this paired square concept where she has played diagonally from a card on the board. If they play in one of the paired squares, she will then play in the other, right? We set up our combo such that when they occupy one, we go in the other and flip everything. And that's the dream. And of course, when that happens, we're going to be securing a corner card or trying to. So she is about securing, but she'll often get to those secure moves differently. But she very much will secure cards, right? We're not giving up on that concept. We're instead offering an alternative view that still includes it as valuable. Because she's also really looking to set up combos. She likes to start in 5, where Basic Bob likes to start in corners, which is the square that impacts the board most. And she tends to leave space open. She finds these diagonal moves. I really should have listed that here. I will say it over and over, where she sees the board as these diagonal interactions that set up sames and plus synergies. Replying to starters, she looks to set up maximal synergy for your own cards off their starter. So sometimes that looks like Bob, but she has no interest in far corners and is much more likely to go in the center than Bob is. When in doubt, she finds the card that has the least capturing power or can set up the most combo, and she sets up them combos. In summary, synergy, synergy, synergy. Bob is about security, Carla's about synergy. She wants paired squares. So we're going to look at some spots we looked at through Basic Bob's view and now see what Carla would do in those positions. And sometimes it will be better, sometimes it will be worse. I'm not saying this is a better way to view the game, but I think it is a different way that opens up new aspects of looking for moves. So in this position, you may remember Basic Bob. We're playing a Basic Bob hand. This is not a Carla style hand. And that may lead to a conclusion we're about to draw. But Basic Bob here, through his reasoning, would go in 7. He'd say, I can take from 2. They can take back, though, so I shouldn't take immediately. I cannot take from 4, so I need to set up to be able to take in 4. The square to do that is 7. So I will play a card in 7. Which card should I play in 7? Ideally, the one that gives the same. Carla would like that part of the reasoning. And so I will play 3, 2, 7, 6, and 7. But Carla wants to go in 5, and if she can go in 5 and set up a same and plus both ways, ideally where the opponent does not also have a same or plus in 2 or 4, that's the dream, right? The opponent is set to be able to recapture their starter, but they do so with plus walls, which means when we put a card in 5, we might be able to set it up so we have double captures in both 2 and 4, while they only have single captures. And if we can do it with sames, then they won't be able to combo our cards back. So that's really going to be the goal. We want to prioritize sames, and we want to set up the most synergy we can on their starter. So there are 2 moves in 5 that give us a same and a plus both ways. One is 7-6-3-2 in 5, and one is 3-2-7-6. So 7-6-3-2 has that 7 up, and we can play a same in 2 with a 3-2-7-6, and it has a 2 to the left, which gives us a plus in 4 with 2-7-6-3. And 3-2-7-6 sets up 7-6-3-2 to have a same in 4. And in 2, it gives us 2-7-6-3 with a plus, or 2-6-3-6 with a same. Now, once we have that, we've seen we have 2 ways to set up synergies on both sides. The next thing is we don't want to give them any of those synergies. So which sets them up less? Well, 7-6-3-2 gives them a same with, they have the 3-2-7-6 as well, so they also have the same in 2, but it doesn't give them anything in 4. While 3-2-7-6 in 5 gives them a same in 2, and it gives them a plus in 4. So that's going to set them up more. We don't want to set them up. We want to have more combos than they do, and Carla would play 7-6-3-2 in 5. Now, okay, I want to say a little more on this position, which is I think Basic Bob's move is better here. I think this is an example of a position where Carla chooses a reasonable move and Basic Bob chooses one that applies clearly more pressure. And I'm not quite sure how to verbalize why I think that, but I think good players looking at this position for any length of time will kind of agree Basic Bob's move looks harder for red to meet. But part of that is this is a Basic Bob hand, right? This is a hand with these 4 corners, and it's kind of set to play off each other in cornery-based ways. Carla would build a hand designed to have a starter in 5 and stuff play off that. So it's sort of not that much of a surprise that Carla, looking at a Bob game, would think, I would rather do this, and Bob's move would make more sense given his hand. Again, sometimes Carla will find better moves, sometimes Bob will. In the example we started with, Carla finds a very good move, and Bob finds only losing moves. He doesn't even find a tie. In this one, both find reasonable responses to the opponent's starter, but I think Bob's is a little better. So continuing the game, Bob played in 7, and the opponent blocked in 4. So in this setup, would Carla try to set stuff up? And the answer is no. The whole point of paired squares is utilizing these diagonals. Once a kind of paired square is occupied, she's going to pounce, right? So once a starter is played in 1, there's sort of innately these paired squares in 2 and 4, right? As soon as 1 is occupied, the other is the only one that can impact it. So of course when 4 is played, she's delighted to go in 2. So both Carla and Bob will play 2, 6, 3, 6, and 2, and I think virtually any player would. And this is to say, they often find similar moves, and his move is going to be focusing on kind of securing, and her move is going to be kind of just treating these as there are paired squares. 1 was occupied, now I'm going to use the other, and that does secure, but it's kind of a different way of thinking about it. So I think another way to put it is, you may remember this from the always takes game, hence the hideous diagram where I don't actually line up the cards very well. But here it is blue to move, and blue wins by force. And Bob might play in 6, which puts blue up 6-4. Blue can then play in 8, capturing 2 cards, or capturing 1 card, because there's only 1 card they can take, but securing 2 cards. Capturing 1, putting them up 5-5, and blue will play in 9 at the end and win 6-4. And the same happens if blue plays in 8. But Carla, who sees diagonals, would play a different win in this position. And in the always takes game, blue is winning by force here. I'm not, all these moves win. But Carla will look at moves in 9, right? Where maybe I can set up both ways on stuff, and if you play it out, always taking, Carla plays in 9, the opponent plays in either 6 or 8, either way they capture 2 cards, the cards in 5 and 9, and then Carla will play in the other of 6 or 8, capturing 3 and winning 6-4. So all moves here win in the always takes game. Remember, it doesn't actually matter what these numbers are. Anytime we play next to something in this, it counts as capturing it. So both will win, but Carla will look for a possibility that Bob doesn't really consider. And at this point, there's 3 moves left, and Bob is capable of calculating that, so Bob would be able to find moves in 9. But I think this is kind of emblematic of where their instincts are, where Bob would like to play in 6 or 8, because those are the moves that immediately secure cards. Carla will play in 9, setting up these paired squares, and secure just as many cards in the long run, but fewer in the short run. So I hope this is a useful example for kind of her way of thinking of diagonals rather than his way of kind of thinking, I'm just going to put it next to the thing I have, keep controlling things. And this is why I think players more of Carla's style tended to have more erratic, inconsistent results, where sometimes they'd achieve these incredible highs, but they could also make really poor moves because they're essentially just playing significantly more complicated triple triad. While basic Bob is, I'm going to play very straightforward triple triad, and I'm going to do it really well. And so I do wonder, I think I'm going to make videos with trying to play against each other with their styles, if Carla's style might need more calculation ability to work. But it might be that Carla's style leads to complex enough positions which Carla can handle and Bob can't. So I'm really not sure how that'll go, and I think I will do that at some point. But I hope this example shows they just look for different things, right? There are different instincts, and both instincts make sense. So, okay. Yeah, so this one is supposed to identify that Carla is looking at 2 and 4 as paired squares, and when the opponent played in 4 here, when red played in 4, she of course went in 2. So okay, moving forward to the next move, both Carla and Bob played in 2, and the opponent replied in 5. And Bob went, I want to go in 3 or 8. Those are the squares that make sense, those are the squares that secure. Bob eventually went in 8, and the game ended in a tie. Carla would think, okay, where's my diagonal opportunity? I want to go in 9. And the idea would be to pair 6 and 8, and if she can set up combo potential in both, that would be really appealing. So a move that jumps out, for instance, might be 2, 7, 6, 3, and 9. It sets up a same in 8, and it sets up a same in 6, and it sets up a plus with 7, 6, 3, 2 in 8, right? And that's a kind of move that might jump out. Or 6, 3, 2, 7, and 9, which sets up a plus in 6, and same in 8, right? 7, 6, 3, 2 does not have the same capabilities, but there are 2 different moves in 9 that immediately jump out as this sets up a lot of combo potential. However, the key is 8 is still more important than 6, right? Because we know securing is important. And if 8's more important than 6, if we set up combo potential, we really need to be comboing things. Specifically, we need something to have high value towards 8 to dissuade the opponent from occupying that square. So if the opponent's card in 5 was, say, the 3, 2, 7, 6, and it had a 7 down, Then we set up combos, and if they go in 8, we go in 6, we flip everything, including that card in 8, because the card in 5 will flip it. Here, the card in 5 has no power facing 8, and so setting up this combo stuff is kind of unlikely to work, because it just doesn't threaten the squares our opponent is going to play. And it turns out that moves in 9 lose here. And so I think a Carla playing poorly might play in 9 here, looking that I can set up all this combo synergy and just lose immediately. But a better Carla, our combo Carla, will go, I know 8 is more important than 6. So if I'm going to play in 9, I really need a lot of combo power to be directed towards 8. That isn't here, so I don't think I can get away with it. And then we're going to end up reverting to a Bob-like reasoning. So there's an extra thing we look for Carla that Bob wouldn't look for, these diagonal plays. And here, the diagonal play doesn't work. And hopefully kind of these more aggressive combo-oriented players are good enough to spot this is not the time for it. But I think we will get to an example where it might be the time for it. And that's the end of the video. Great. I thought I was going to get to it this video. There's an example from the games that Bob commentated where I think Carla would have spotted something he didn't, but now I'm blanking on what it was. And we have concluded the video. So hope you enjoyed this intro to a different style of play. With a real focus on paired squares, on setting up synergy, sames and pluses, just constantly looking for those, and looking to respond to cards diagonally, and respond to squares they control with squares diagonal to those squares to set up maximum synergy. Where Bob looks to block stuff in. And so very different styles, but as you could see from the game they played, on moves 2, 4, and 6, the moves that are somewhat difficult to play, there was only one difference in moves they would make. Once we made Bob's first move, their next 2 moves were exactly the same. But Carla would have differed on the first move, and I think if we played that out, we'd end up getting quite a different game.